Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from wherever you are joining from, and good evening, and depending on where you are joining from. My name is Godsway Kubi, the lead facilitator for the online safety community, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you all here today to our session, and where we are going to have a discussion on a critical and timely topic around unlocking our internet society's safer internet initiative, which has a lot of opportunities for us. And also we look at its impacts. We look at how you can actively engage, which is one of the most important parts that why we are here today. And this is not just an awareness, like I always say, and it's designed for or as an entry point into action, where we will be able to help you understand where you fit into this global effort, and also to build a safer and more trustworthy internet. So we'll hear directly from our Internet Society program leads. We are so much excited and happy to have the leads of this initiative join us here today, directly from the Internet Society staffs. And we are going to explore some practical and also implementation examples, and most importantly, identify clear pathways, like I mentioned earlier, of how we can get involved. So I think I'll just go briefly to what it means, or what maybe someone might not know about the Safer Internet Initiative. Basically, it's just society's global events or multi-year program. So this year's duration is having around 2026 to 2029, where we are aiming to strengthen online trust and safety, and also cybersecurity for individuals and communities worldwide. And I think this was launched in response to the growing risks we see people face online, including scams, misinformation, privacy violations, and among many others, which are eroding trust in the internet space. So one of the core objectives of this initiative is just to ensure that people everywhere can use the internet safely, secure, and also confident, while shifting the responsibility from safety from individuals to systems. So the same safety we have for individuals, systems also need that safety, and also platforms, our ecosystem, that is safety. We call something safety by design. So safety is being considered in the initial development stage. So some of the key pillars are, I think we've all gone through, if we've gone through this application, you've already seen the funding for this, for impact, where through the mechanisms like the Common Good Cyber Fund, and the initiative supports organizations working to protect users and also strengthening the internet security. And another pillar is capacity building education, where we're going to do more of programs such as anti-scams and the others. So I think I will just give a brief overview. We will hear more from our leads, and I think we will appreciate it better. And with that, let's begin and set the context rolling. So I think first of all, I will allow our staffs or facilitators to introduce themselves in depth, because I might miss some of the introductions. I don't want to miss anything. So first of all, I'll give an opportunity to Dan.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Dan York. I'm part of the Online Trust and Safety project this year. Kevin will talk a little bit more about what we're doing overall. And I have responsibility for working on what we're calling our Online Trust and Safety Hub. Some of you were perhaps involved last year with the community consultations. I've been here with the Internet Society for about coming up on 15 years, and I live in Vermont in the United States.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate you so much for getting involved and making sure this happened as well. We have with us Jeff. Please feel free to introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, thank you, Godsway. I'm Jeff Wilbur. I'm Senior Director of Online Trust. I lead this year a Safer Internet project, which I will distinguish from the initiative and the fund. Kind of confusing. We use Safer Internet in very different ways. I've been at the Internet Society about 9 years now, and formerly co-led our encryption work, and have been involved in the trust and safety area for a long time. I live in the US and Texas.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff, for also agreeing to be with us here today, and we really appreciate that. And we have also Kevin. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Godsway. Greetings, everyone. My name is Kevin Chege. I'm a Senior Director Internet Development at the Society. I'm here because I co-lead the Online Trust and Safety program at ISOC with my colleague Paula. I'm not sure she might join the call. I'm happy to be here. I'll talk a bit about what we're doing on Online Trust and Safety, and looking forward to the session. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. Back to you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin, for the introduction and for agreeing to be here with us. And also, I think we also have a few staffs here with us as well, which John, please feel free to also just introduce yourself, please.
Hey everyone, John Perrino of the Internet Society. I work on our policy on secure and trustworthy internet, and also support Kevin and Paula, who lead our online trust and safety program. Delighted to join here, and I just wanted to join the community today. I'm also a online safety group member.
Sure. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that insight with us. So I think we are going to move straight forward to our sessions today as outlined earlier. Now, first of all, we are going to look at a strategic overview of the whole Safer Internet initiative. Jeff, please feel free to take over.
Yeah, thank you. I want to give just a brief overview of the Safer Internet Initiative, and then Kevin and I and others, if they need to chip in, will go into detail on some of the components of this initiative. It was announced in February of this year. And as I was preparing for this and saying, hey, I should put some slides together and looking at our website, I realized all the information is very well articulated on our website. So I think what I'm going to do is do a guided tour of some of our web pages, both for this and when we go into more detail. And it won't be very many, but all the information is there. And I will put links in the chat as we go so that you have it as a reference. And Godsway, I'll give you all the links at the end so you can send those out, because that way it'll be very readily available to everyone. So this is the primary page for our Safer Internet Initiative. Godsway already gave a good introduction. I wanted to walk through some key components of this just to highlight certain areas and then go back and maybe make some connections to our strategy and our action plan for 2026 so you can see how all these pieces fit together. As he said, this Safer Internet Initiative is really about keeping people safe online, phrase we've started to use informally at the Internet Society is we want to connect the unconnected and protect the connected. So they go together, and you'll see that in our 2030 strategy, those are the two key strategic areas that we're focused on, is getting people connected and then keeping them safe online. So this fits in that second area. And what was happening was we were finding that our own work was being very tightly coordinated with work of partners and interest from donors. And it made sense to create a broad area for the Safer Internet Initiative where donors could donate into a kind of a mixed co-fund to help us do our work and increase our capacity. We already had a lot of work going on, but this enables us to level that up and do more work with the community and do more of this kind of work ourselves. So you can see that it's a global multi-year strategy. And there are three kind of key components: funding, and that's funding out to our community and others; training materials, and advocacy. And those three work hand in hand. They aren't really separate pillars. They're all intertwined. And of course, if you go just a step further here, it has another kind of level of detail here, that creating online education and training, the safety hub, which Kevin will talk about in more detail, and Dan referenced already in his introduction, advocacy work, which John Perrino introduced himself as very involved in. I'll show how that fits in. This fourth bullet here, funding for organizations that maintain critical infrastructure, defend high-risk communities, and strengthen digital resilience, is really alluding to the Common Good Cyber Fund, another new area for us. And I'll go into more detail on that in our next kind of section of the agenda. And then this last one is very directly applicable to our community. It's our grants and other activities where the community can be engaged. And so this would be things like the Beyond the Net grants, the Global Encryption Day event grants, and so forth, as well as access to some of the available resources that we'll be creating along the way here. So this is very intertwined with the community. And we want, if you drew this as a Venn diagram, we'd have the funding, the training, the advocacy all intertwined, and the community would be a big circle around the whole thing, because we can't do it without our community. So to rewind a bit and give some context, I want to jump to our 2030 strategy. This is something that was posted almost, 2 years ago now, this week. And this kind of set the stage for all activity for the 5-year window that we're in. So I want to scroll down to the two global challenges that we identified as we went into this 5-year window. Global inequality, and this is mainly about connectivity, getting the remaining people connected to the internet, but then addressing the trust aspects of the internet as we go forward. And so that's where these are paired together. This is connecting the unconnected and then protecting the connected. If you go a little bit further, strategic goals, the first section there is about getting people connected. This is the one that the Safer Internet Initiative is tied to, that people have a safe, secure experience that protects them online. So this encompasses a lot of our work in our online trust and safety program that Kevin and I and Dan and John are in, and our open and trustworthy internet program that John is also in, and we have a lot of other activity going on there. That's where the advocacy part of our work mainly lives. The third bullet here, we will empower people to make safe choices. This is the focus of what we're talking about, creating new resources, this online trust and safety hub, and some of the new things that you'll see coming out later this year that Kevin will be talking about. And then, of course, we have the advocacy element here as well. So that's really strategically how this ties in. But then I also want to show you how it fits into this year's action plan. So this is the cover page of our 2026 action plan. I'm going to scroll down here and show you the various program work that we have. So these are our 6 programs and then 1 transformation area. I don't know if you've read through this. These are all available easily online. But these 2 areas in the upper right, online trust and safety and open and trustworthy internet, are the 2 programs that kind of live underneath the Safer Internet Initiative umbrella, if you think of it that way. So there's a lot of work going on in both of these programs. I think roughly 9 or 10 different projects that live under these, and they all feed into our Safer Internet Initiative. If you go a little bit further, I'm going to scroll down to those 2 areas, 3 and 4. So I'm going to scroll through 1 and 2. So here we have online trust and safety in our action plan. We want to equip recently connected people so they can protect themselves, advocate for good choices made by governments and commercial entities, and equip our chapters with the tools to promote online safety. So you'll see that woven into what both Kevin and I talk about. In 2026, we want to support the new Safer Internet Fund. I'll talk about that in more detail. Publish online safety resources. Kevin will talk about that. Community Trainer Toolkit, that's tied to the resources. So Kevin will talk about that. The hub we've already referenced. And then some new area of work that you'll see later in the year that Kevin will talk about is an anti-scam initiative. As we look at how this all came together, if I come back up to the top with the Safer, I'll talk about that on the next thing that I do. So let me just cover real quickly open and trustworthy internet and the focus for 2026. We want to build powerful technical communities. Some of that will be tied into our common good cyber granting. We want to influence governments, position us as a leading advocate, develop advocacy skills in the community. So that's one area of possible engagement for you. And then utilize our alumni network, people who've been involved with us for a while, to really up our advocacy level overall. So that's that area. I just want to connect those dots. The strategy came out a couple of years ago. Each year we do an action plan for the year. These 2 areas, online trust and safety and open and trustworthy internet, are the areas that live under that Safer Internet Initiative umbrella. But I want to do one more Safer Internet Initiative. This is the link that Godsway sent out, a blog post when we announced the initiative. But it has some details in it that I think are very relevant here. So global multi-year project. So this is not a once and done thing. We have a long view of this. It is tied to our 2030 strategy, which I just referenced. But this is a point I wanted to highlight, is that we will be directing between our own resources and donor resources more than $40 million to these programs over the next few years. And we're constantly in conversation with more donors to increase this number and build the capacity across the entire thing. So there are various components that live under that. Some of it will come out as grants from us. I'll talk about those in the next section. Some of it comes out as our own work and creating new resources. And it's a mix. Sometimes when we have donors come in that align with our work, they're very specific about the kind of work they want to see done with the money that they're donating. And we'll accommodate that if it aligns with our work. Some make a more general donation and say, apply it however you want in this area. And so it gives us the opportunity to build our programs and increase our capacity overall in all these areas. Or maybe they fund one area of our work and that frees up our own resources to go increase capacity in another area of our work. So this is a big initiative that covers lots of areas, and it has several different components that live underneath it. The Common Good Cyber Fund is probably the biggest financial element of this, and I'll talk about it in more detail. It's really, if you net it out, funding cybersecurity nonprofits that are engaged in the global majority part of the world, but I'll go into much more details. That is really the key. These bullet points are the same ones we saw on the prior web page. Of course, it's important because the threat vectors and the threat activity is only increasing, and AI is accelerating it to new levels. So it's more important than ever. So that's really the end of kind of the overview. Godsway, I don't know how you wanted to handle this, whether you wanted to pause and take questions now or go to the next level of detail and then talk about questions then.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff, for highlighting on that. And like you stated, without a community, this work cannot be done. We need a community to get involved. And I feel that is one interesting aspect of this whole initiative where community involvement matters. Let's move straight forward to our third agenda on this, where we are going to dive deep to look at some key components and opportunities that Jeff mentioned earlier. Kevin, please, over to you.
Thank you, Godsway. Thank you, Jeff. So first of all, I'll give some background on the online trust safety program, and I'll focus really on the capacity building angle, some of the learning materials that are available. So I'll take you back to last year just to understand why ISOC got into online trust safety. As we all know, there is a lack of trust on the internet, and we wanted to empower users to be able to identify some of these issues on online trust and safety and have a safe experience on the internet. So the online trust and safety program was started in January 2025, and we had just a couple of key objectives, which were to first define the scope. As we all know, online trust and safety is a very broad topic. We wanted to just narrow down on what we could do as the internet society and how we could also leverage our community of chapters and partners. Second thing we really wanted to do was engage our community, and our community is our ISOC chapters and partners. We wanted to listen to what they felt was missing in online trust and safety so that we could come in and build the materials or plug the gaps. And this was to focus primarily on developing learning materials, making learning materials accessible, but really learning materials that would focus on what our community felt was missing. And we wanted these materials to focus on, or rather to really help the newly connected users who are coming into the internet, because we felt those who are the most vulnerable, as well as audiences who are based in challenging environments. So we really wanted to focus on new users. We just call them recently connected, but in that bucket of recently connected, you could include the elderly, people who are just novice users on the internet, or people in constrained environments where access is limited and you wanted to know how to stay safe on the internet. So after listening to our community chapters, we did a lot of surveys, we did a lot of interviews from people who are already in online trust and safety to understand what was missing so that we could develop the materials. We went ahead and developed some learning materials on 9 key topics, which I'll mention. And those 9 topics were really, we didn't select them, we listened to our community and prioritize those 9 topics, which I'll show shortly. And these are the 9 topics that our community felt were of the most important or the most pressing. So these are not all the topics you could cover in online trust and safety, but for when engaging our community, these were the ones that they felt were really of urgent, that needed to be urgently addressed. So the 9 topics are there. So we have avoiding scams, what to do after clicking suspicious links. So you can imagine someone who's received an email and you don't know what to do once they click a link. Maybe it was a phishing attack. How to identify when they're using secure websites, how to use VPNs, improving privacy, password management, how to hack a strong password, multi-factor authentication, identifying misinformation. We know this is still a very big issue. How to protect devices. So you can imagine a user who's perhaps sharing a device or using an old device. What can they do to bring up their device up to speed? And identifying secure apps. So we all know we have millions of apps out there. How do you identify whether an app is trustworthy or not, especially for a new user? If you're a seasoned user, perhaps it's much easier for you. But as we all know, if you're a new user and you come in online, it can be very challenging and overwhelming to identify what's trustworthy in terms of software applications, what can you install in a phone, and what should you avoid. So these are the 9 topics, and we developed short form learning materials. These were mostly short videos and accompanying narrative text documents. We chose to pilot them, and we piloted them in 4 different areas. The person was in Brazil, so an in-person workshop. And then we did El Salvador, that was also an in-person workshop. Then there was one in Rwanda, which I was able to attend. And then for the APAC region, we did a hybrid event, which was really 2 countries with a lot of support from our chapters. So if you look at the partner section there, the column of partners, you'll see we really want to work with our chapters and our partners. We're leveraging the community out there. Everyone who's on the call here, we really feel you're a key part of us in championing online trust and safety. So these were the 4 pilot workshops that we did, and we took a lot of learnings from them. We developed what we call toolkits on online trust and safety. I'll give a very brief show of what one looks like and share where you can get some of these resources later. So this was what we did in 2025. So for 2026, last year was launching the project, setting the scope, listening to the community, identifying and prioritizing what topics we should focus on. We want to develop what we're calling the Online Trust and Safety Hub, which is to aggregate all the available resources, online trust and safety, into one. Think of it as a one-stop shop, really. We all know there are dozens, hundreds, perhaps even thousands of resources on online trust and safety. The purpose of the hub will be just to aggregate those into one easy-to-find website, which is categorized in a way, whether you're a seasoned user or a new user to the internet, you can easily find what you're looking for. Second thing we want to do is build on our online trust and safety trainings. We're going to do a lot of virtual trainings. We also started some in-person trainings. We also want to develop some anti-scam materials. We're working with some partners on this. You'll see and hear more about this from ISOC later in the year. And we also want to develop some anti-scam toolkits. I'll show you what the current online trust and safety toolkit looks like. That will give an idea of what the anti-scam one was going to look like. And finally, one thing we want to do this year, but one of the key objectives we want to do is have a way of listening to the community through meetings like this, sessions like this, to identify emerging issues in online trust and safety. So what does our community think is an emerging issue, which perhaps is not very big now, but will become a big problem for online trust and safety in the months and years to come? And we are going to organize listening sessions much like this to listen to our audience and have a good way of identifying those issues and perhaps seeing how can we start responding to them earlier, or how can we prepare for those issues, because we know it's always better to be prepared rather than respond. So that's the purpose of the landscape assessment and then planning the response. I mentioned the online trust and safety learning materials. Now, these are already publicly available. I just want to walk you through how you can find them. You can go to this link. I'll post it on the chat. You'll see we have a landing page here on online trust and safety with some information that is mentioned there. When you scroll down, you'll come to this link here called Learn. And when you click on Learn, it'll take you through to this page, which is our landing page for online trust and safety learning materials, which are open to anyone. And we mentioned there the key objectives, which are assist people to identify common online scams. And this is really focused on the 9 topics that I mentioned earlier. And once you register or once you enroll into the course, I'll show you what it looks like in the next page. you would be able to access the course through our freely available learning management system. We have 11 lessons there. They're available in English, Spanish, and French, and they're all self-study short-form videos on several online trust and safety topics. And these are available to you immediately right now. I think I will stop here and I'll mention the online trust safety toolkit, I think, a bit later in the call.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing that insight with us. And we really appreciate that. And I think so far we've gotten a lot of deep dive into it. And we now know what the program is all about and how best we could fit in. So let's now move straight forward to some community actions or implementation in practice. So for example, on our side, as the online safety community, our focus has always been on the online safety, digital trust, and capacity building. And also, for instance, an example of a case study of such an initiative or how is what I'm doing currently in the Ghanaian community, where we are building a youth-led online safety advocacy. So for example, we are training youths. What we did recently was we have to identify youths across 10 universities, 10 pilot universities to start with for our online trust and safety campus ambassador program, where the youths went through some training using the ISOC Learn, like what Kevin explained. There are learning materials also available where we use ISOC Learn, and also we had Facilitator led, which came on live sessions to guide the students on how best to lead such initiative on their campuses and had them know more of insight on how these online safety initiatives are being run or get to know some few topics. And I think this is also a practical campaign that goes on. And this was actually a campus-based one. And so this is basically a brief case study I would like to say there. And in this case like this, it aligns with what we just spoke about. And so you can start thinking of an activity, or if you already have one and you want to maybe scale it up, start thinking of something. And so at this point, we are going to have an interactive session where I would have to go back to our facilitators to also say a few of what they have.
I have a little more to say about Common Good Cyber Fund and some other areas where engagement could happen, but it's a little separate from what Kevin just talked about. This is one of our foundation pages for funding areas. And what I wanted to point out here is, I mentioned the Safer Internet Initiative. A lot of it is funding that would, from our own resources or from donor resources, that would flow through us out to the community for various opportunities. I wanted to point out the ones that are related to the Safer Internet work. So, of course, the first one is the Beyond the Net program. It's very broad in the kind of things you can propose. There's a good amount of resources available there. It is open right now to apply for various events or work that you would want to do. And a lot of it historically is tied to online trust and safety, like training communities on how to operate safely online. Even before we identified this Safer Internet Initiative and started our work in the online trust and safety last year, a lot of our chapters were doing this already. So that's still a key area where you can get involved and engaged in this work. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to talk about Common Good Cyber last, because I want to go into a little more detail there. The next one is Global Encryption Day events. And that one has been going now we did it in the Internet Society side of the house, and a few years ago it transferred over to the foundation. But we've been doing it, I think this will be our 5th or 6th year to fund Global Encryption Day events. A notice went out to everyone who's part of the Global Encryption Coalition last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. But this grant opportunities for these events is going to open up near the end of June. And so I will show you that page. This is the Global Encryption Day is the 21st of October every year. We historically have done roughly 50 grants, small ones. This year, we're changing a couple things. It used to be first come, first served. And as I mentioned, smaller amounts of money, but a broader number of grants. This year, we're opening it up to larger money, less number of grants. So what we want to do is get all the applications in, decide which ones to support with more funding than in prior years, And notice went out a few weeks ago, but the details are on this page as well. So if we scroll down here, it's to do events that support strong end-to-end encryption. And there's a variety. It can be training events. It can be advocacy events. A lot of people have done workshops with policymakers in their country or their region. It's been a wide variety of things, and that's what we love about it. Very well adopted all over the world. And of course, the focus is to encourage adoption and use of end encrypted tools. This year, here's the eligibility requirements. I'm not really going to go through those. I want to scroll down to the bottom here. So we're looking at 22 to 28 grants of roughly $3,000 a piece. So that's a change, more money, but less total grants. And then the timeline is here. So the applications will open on the 23rd of June. They'll be open for roughly 3 weeks, till the middle of July. And that's done through our Flux program, which I think many of you are familiar with. And this is another way to get engaged with the work that falls under that Safer Internet initiative and umbrella. And I'm sure many of you have already done this in the past. But I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. So I'm going to bounce back to the funding areas page, our philanthropy work. So here's the list, but I'm going to go back to Common Good Cyber Fund because that's a new one this year. And rather than sit on this page, I'm going to jump to the main program page for Common Good Cyber, if I can get menus out of the way here. So we announced this about a year ago. It turns out that about 2 years ago, some of the cybersecurity nonprofits had been talking to each other about the challenge that they have of protecting vulnerable communities and really providing a strong baseline for cybersecurity around the world. And that the challenge they have is not as nonprofits is they often spend 30% or more of their time chasing the next round of funding. And it means they can't do the work they really want to do. They're just constantly chasing funding a year at a time. And we had similar thoughts. And so last year we came together and we're working together with the entities that sort of started this initiative 2 years ago. And they have something called the Common Good Cyber Initiative, of kind of a structure that this lives under. And we are doing the fund. And there were a variety of donors that were interested in doing this, and they're listed here. So we have on this list, we have 4 governments, I think: Australia, UK, Canada, and the Netherlands. We ourselves are contributing into this work, and so is Craig Newmark Philanthropies. If you don't know who Craig Newmark is, he's the one who started Craigslist years ago and does a lot of philanthropic work. So this fund is very specifically tied to this work. And there's a lot of guardrails and definitions about how the money is going to be used and who it would go to. It really is focused on, because of the threat vectors increasing so much, and especially on vulnerable communities and underserved regions, because commercial entities don't often support those. We really need to help fund the nonprofit side of the world to do that. And it really has 3 objectives. One is maintaining critical cybersecurity infrastructure. The 2 areas that are probably easiest to mention here that most people can relate to are encrypting web sessions, Let's Encrypt, for instance, or securing the DNS infrastructure. Those are 2 areas that most people can relate to. The second one here is delivery of scalable support to secure internet users from digital harm, including state-directed activities. So this is where countries might be trying to get at or surveil people that now live in other countries. And so this is another objective that we want to fund nonprofits in. And the third is just more of a general safer internet for vulnerable groups and high-risk communities. So these are the 3 kind of filters, you might say, that we would use to say, if someone applied for money in this grant, do you line up with the objectives that we're looking to do? And this was all defined out of the work that started 2 years ago. We got involved about a year ago, and now we're managing the fund. this gives you a little more detail about what we're looking for inside each of those objectives and some examples. And then down here, it talks about eligibility. So you need to be a nonprofit and align with our objectives and can deliver services. We're really looking at the global majority. I think in general, chapters would not align as well with this, but some may if they're doing very specific work. And I know a lot of you are probably involved in organizations that may very well align directly for these three objectives. I want to talk about the funding here and the timeline, which are near the bottom of this page. So we're looking at awarding $3.5 million this year and these will generally be 2-year awards shown here in the range of $100,000 to $300,000. And the proposal window will open in June. We can see down here from the 23rd of June when it opens to the 4th of August. And then we'll be assessing those through the remainder of August and in September and award these in the fourth quarter. So that's a high-level timeline. There is an information session in a little less than 3 weeks where you can get all the information you would want to know about regarding what we're looking for, how to apply, and the ground rules on everything. There already is posted an application guide here, and I'll just click through to that real quickly. If I remember right, it's like a 12-page document, but it says before you apply, what should you consider, some guidance for preparing your application, and then question by question in the application, it gives guidance for how to respond. So it's very easy to walk through this and understand what we're looking for and how it might fit with the kind of work you can do. So I'm scrolling way down to the bottom here. And then how you align with these three objectives. And there are multiple questions per objective. And then the other kind of administrative type things that need to accompany this. So I wanted you to see the details here, just so you know, it's very much in motion. There's a lot of work that's gone behind this. There'll be quite a bit of money distributed, $3.5 million this year. I also wanted to just point out that, and this was posted in February, we did a pilot run of this grant program last year at the end of the year, and we awarded $1.9 million to 6 entities. And they are all listed here with the amount and what they do. So Access Now, it's mainly their 24/7 digital security helpline. So that's to protect users. Cyber Peace Institute first, which does reporting and mitigation. Global Cyber Alliance, which is in charge of some of the aspects of the Common Good Cyber Initiative. Internet Security Research Group, they're the ones that have Let's Encrypt. And by this year, they expect to have 1 billion websites protected with free TLS certificates. That's just amazing. And then Shadow Server, who does threat intelligence in real time. And so those are the kind of entities that we funded in the first round. And then we'll do this next round with the open call starting in June. And then I want to just show you one more thing. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the Common Good Cyber Initiative has its own website. They link very directly to our web pages for the fund itself, but they are governed by an ecosystem committee, and you see a lot of the names that were in the pilot round of funding. And then they have what's called a strategic advisory committee that helps define for each round of funding that we do, what kind of threats should we be focused on? And within those objectives, how should we focus our grant giving? And so you can see some examples of the members here. There are 13 here. There are actually a few more now on board on the Strategic Advisory Committee, but it'll give you an idea of what we're looking at. So I'm going to stop sharing there. And I see there is a hand up.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing that insight, and we really appreciate you as well. Confidence, your hand is up.
Thank you, Jeff, for that presentation, and thank you, Godsway. We appreciate. My name is Confidence Hussein. I'm calling in from Nigeria. My question is in 2 phases. beyond the funding, a lot of activities are going on in ISOC. And I'm wondering, for the trust and safety, some of us are trust and safety professionals outside ISOC. How I've seen that you guys have done a lot of things, a lot of activities, a lot of good work has been put up. And one of the things I know ISOC to be good at is carrying community along. My question is, how does one get involved in these activities that churn out such great gatherings like this and everything you guys have projected? Because I believe it's not just about coming out to apply for funding, to apply for fellowship. One has to really be involved. Where are those spaces where there are working groups, where there are communities? I know SIGs and everything. For trust and safety work, where are those places where one can be involved in what you do? That's my first question. Then secondly, talking about the funding, I have once tried one of this funding in the past, and I see some gap in the funding process. I feel it's more tuned to bigger organizations. There are grassroots NGOs that are tending to communities, everyday ordinary users who are exposed to online risk and stuff. Some of these organizations, grassroots NGOs, might not or don't have what it takes to apply for these funds. When you go into ISOC flux, there are so many restrictions. If you don't have your own account, probably because you're a bigger organization and you have your own account, you can't apply for these funds. So I'm wondering, how does one rectify this? Because looking through the presentation Jeff just did now, I saw all those big organizations. Those are well formed and structured. What are grassroots community organizations that are really dealing with these people down the ladder and everyday users? How are real organizations like this going to apply for these funds? Because I see that these funds just go to bigger organizations. So I don't know, how does one go about it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Confidence. And that's a good one. Please, who like to take it? Okay, Jeff.
Kevin, you want to take the first part on the getting engaged with the work itself, and then I can take the second one?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your question, Confidence. So you've asked, how can one get involved in doing some tangible work on online trust and safety? So I'll give the answer from the perspective of the online trust and safety program at ISOC. As mentioned, we are leveraging a lot on our chapter network. So if you're in a country, you mentioned you're in Nigeria, I believe, Confidence. So through the chapter there in Nigeria, that would be a very good way to do it. We do have toolkits designed specifically for use by our chapters, and using those, you can structure a training activity or a workshop that will then use our learning materials, and you can use that to actually engage, to train the audience that you're looking for online trust and safety. So after this round of questions, I think I'll show you what that toolkit looks like. This will be made freely available on our website. But the purpose of that toolkit is to empower users like yourself from the community who want to do something tangible on training the vulnerable audiences out there on online trust and safety. We have the toolkits, we have the learning materials. These are readily available. And I'll show you what this looks like after this round of questions.
I'll take the funding question. And I know there are layers on this in your question, and so I'll try to address as much as I can, and then I'd love to maybe do a follow-up conversation with you and understand it more. But yes, I understand some of these do lean toward larger organizations, especially Common Good Cyber Fund, I'd say would definitely fall in that category. It's probably the most restrictive of the ones that I talked about. There is an opportunity within that, though, that some larger entity can then do sub-grants to smaller entities. So if there's an opportunity regionally or within a country, whatever, where multiple smaller nonprofits could feed into a larger initiative or a grant, that could be one way to do it. I know it's more complex, but it can still serve a great purpose because you're getting at different aspects, different facets of an audience. So I think that opportunity is in there. The Global Encryption Day grants have, kind of base requirements. Yes, you do have to have a bank account, be in good standing, be a member of the Global Encryption Coalition as a chapter, and so forth. So there are some restrictions there, but hopefully that's more straightforward. I know we've had a lot of chapters take advantage of that in the past. And then same with Beyond the Net grants. Those restrictions are lower. I'm not as familiar with all the other details. There are certain baselines that we have to follow in our philanthropic work. And on the Global Encryption Day grants, it's not just chapters, although they're the ones that take advantage of it the most. Any entity that's a member of the Global Encryption Coalition can apply for those. So if you're chapter member, but involved in one of those organizations, that's an opportunity as well. Hopefully that addressed some of your question. I'm sure it didn't address all of it. I do want to point out one other thing, and I know, Confidence, you mentioned fellowships, but I do want to just share one more thing. That is another opportunity that has a very tight timeline on it, and it is for the community to be engaged. And this is with our advocacy work. Last year, we did 2 community workshops, one in Asia, one in Latin America, total of 56 fellows. It's a 6-month program where you learn how to do advocacy. You do some sample advocacy activities. And then at the end of that, you all meet together in one location. So last year we did 56, so roughly 30 apiece, and do workshops with Internet Society staff. And so these fellowships cover travel and everything else. And so I'll put a link to this in the chat. It's open right now to apply for fellowships, but it closes in 2 days. That's why I wanted to mention it. It would be, you'd have to turn, but the importance, especially for this call, I see it's very Africa-centric, is that, and let me get down to the bottom of this. It opened up 3 weeks ago or so. It closes in a couple days. There's a curriculum, 4 to 5 hours a week worth of curriculum, but we're doing a workshop in Rwanda in August. And so some of you may be interested in looking at that if you didn't already know about it. And then we're doing one in Europe in October. These were very successful last year, very positive response, because it really helps enable our community to do bigger and broader advocacy across all of our work. It wouldn't have to only be online trust and safety. It could be, but it could be in other areas as well. Obviously, we do a lot of work, advocacy work in encryption and some other online safety areas.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing that. So next on the line is Peter.
Yes, thank you so much, and thanks for the great presentation from presenters of today. My name is Peter Mbandu, the founder and executive director of Digital Agenda for Tanzania Initiative. Essentially, we have been participating in different activities regarding to the alignment of the Internet Society. And I remember last time we were funded by Internet Society was during COVID, where we had the school on internet governance. Right now we're calling it Digital Agenda for Internet Governance due to the students around the country. They asked us to rebrand it because it should not only concentrate in urban area like Dar es Salaam, should be decentralized to other parts of Tanzania as our country is too large. So we have, this is the annual event, and we have quarter event of internet safety, where the digital safety initiative, we train different groups, youth and women and persons with disabilities, as well as journalists. However, for the past year, I think last time we did was 2024. It's not only because of the lack of specific funding. It's also we had these issues of the previous election, where there were a lot of challenges on the ground regarding respective authorities. They couldn't understand our work, and we had this back and forth, some limitations to do. So when I came into this Safer Internet initiative, now we see that we are on the right page. I would like to ask, because of the quarter programs we have in our organization, which quarter we have to train several universities, students, or we pick different calibers of youth. How are we going to apply? Because if right now the first quarter is over, now we are getting into the second quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter. If we apply probably for the entire quarter, for all those fourth quarter, and that funding can be allocated to different quotas according to the requirements. How are we going to get it? Oh, I need more knowledge. How from Jeff or from Kelvin? I will share with you some of the summary reports of our organizations, and also of the tools we use the ISOC lessons to implement those lessons to different universities in Tanzania. But we still need more support from your end and more consultation from your end so we can expand and we can make more impact. So that is my question. And another question is, if we apply maybe for this common good, then are we allowed, maybe we apply for global encryption? This, as a non-profit, we know all these activities should go to the people, which we are targeting with alignment with the ISOC, Internet for Everyone mission. However, is it possible for the same organization with different activities to apply? And is it possible to be granted if we qualify? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I want to add, we have a bank account, we have everything, and we have the account for the Internet Society Foundation where we normally apply from there. Thank you.
Yeah, Peter, I think I can answer part of that, but I think we'd like to follow up with you and understand the first kind of question you asked. I want to understand that a little bit more of exactly what kind of assistance you're looking for. As far as I know, and I don't think we have any of our philanthropy people on this call, so I'm putting a big caveat here. If I'm wrong, I will retract it. But I think in our different funding areas, you can get a Global Encryption Day grant and a Beyond the Net grant and a Common Good Cyber grant, and it's okay to get multiple ones. There are restrictions within each of those on having multiple ones for one entity or a total amount of money over a period of time. But as far as I'm aware, there's not across those different grant programs. But I'll say I could be wrong. But I will ask that question, and maybe through Godsway, I can give an answer back out to the group.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing that. I think that works. Kevin, you wanted to say something?
Pretty much what Jeff said. I was going to ask Peter just to contact me because he seems to have a very specific challenge. So maybe if we talk on email.
Sure. I think that works too. Okay. The next on the line is up. Kindly go ahead.
Yes. So I have a lot of questions though. But let's first go with the Facilitator program. I want to know, how does the program help users identify and report with Facilitator challenges in practice?
Kevin, did you get that?
I didn't get that last part. Naomi, could you just type the response?
I just heard some infrastructure aspects. So please, if you could type it in the chat, that would be helpful. So whilst we get back to you again, let's go to Emmanuel.
Good day, everyone. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're listening. My name is Emmanuel from Ghana. I've been a member for Internet Security for some time now. And about 2 years ago, I happened to know that there was a Ghana chapter, so I joined the Ghana chapter. Currently, I have started a project. I am training female teachers in Ghana on the use of ICT skills. And one of the models is on cyber safety. The first cohort was in January and February this year. The second cohort is currently ongoing. Looking at partnership with the Internet Society, and I wanted to find out how rigid or what is the process involved in applying for partnership. Because I've tried the local level, it looks like I'm not getting any responses from the contact I make. Secondly, my sister from Nigeria made a very valid point from my perspective that some of us with small agencies or private businesses or NGOs, we find it very difficult to apply for some of these funding. But we are looking at least partnership opportunity with Internet Society or any agency that's connected to Internet Society to be able to promote cyber safety in schools. I can tell you that the program is being successful and is planned to run for the next 5 years. We are planning to train over 2,000 plus female teachers across Ghana. The first cohort saw over 200 participants from 14 regions of Ghana. And currently, the one that is going on have seen an application from about 10 regions of Ghana with a participant of 200 participants. And it's currently going on. We are finishing on the 9th of May. So I want to find out, what is the process of partnership with Internet Society or any agency if a firm is doing such a project? Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for that. Kevin or Jeff, please, anyone else take it?
Yeah, I'll give a brief answer then. Jeff can answer. Thank you for your question, Emmanuel. So glad to hear you're doing a lot of trainings and that you have joined the local chapter. I think that is the right path to get started with. If you want to expand in terms of the relationship you have with ISOC, definitely the chapter is the best pathway for you. So what I'll do is that I'll ask you to email me, because that's a sort of, again, a very specific issue, and I can see how you can be assisted because you already have some traction going. We've already done some trainings. You're just looking to leverage that and move forward. There are certain pathways you can use. The easiest one, of course, is the chapter. We have a very strong chapter in Ghana. So I can definitely help you put you in touch with the right person at the Ghana chapter.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, for that response. I think there was a question also that says that, are there specific programs that are open to individuals to apply?
That was back up at the beginning of the chat there. A question was basically, are there programs that are open to individuals? Most of our programs are for organizations or groups in some form. So even if you're applying for the Global Encryption Day event things, those would need to be done through an organization of some form. Now, Kevin did mention the training programs, of course, are available for individuals to take. So any of those kind of things are available for individuals to use. So there are plenty of programs there, plenty of resources that are not financial, but you could use those. And I do see Naomi ask her question in the chat.
Yes, I think Naomi has sent the question now. How does the infrastructure program help users identify and report infrastructure challenges in practice?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the question. Are you talking about the infrastructure aspect of the Common Good Cyber Fund? That's one of those 3 objectives, is to have a secure infrastructure.
I think so far that is what spoke about infrastructure. So I'm sure, Naomi, if you can hear us, maybe come again with clarity or just put this in the chat. Okay, so whilst we wait for that, Jeff, maybe we can take it in a general format or something, just to highlight more on the infrastructure program again. That is as part of the Common Good.
Yeah, it's one of the 3 objectives that we need to align to if someone's making a proposal for a grant in Common Good Cyber Fund. And so technical infrastructure, let me get back to that page, and kind of skipped over it, but this might be helpful. So this was on that page that goes through a lot of detail on the Common Good Cyber. So objective 1 is maintenance of critical cybersecurity infrastructure. It says here, strong proposals deliver durable improvements that reduce risk very broadly. And so examples, internet infrastructure protection, DNS, routing security, large-scale threat detection and analysis, response enabling services that help others act faster. So that would be like threat detection and mitigation kind of things. And then maintenance and improvement of security relevant open systems. So those are some examples of infrastructure. I used Let's Encrypt with the free TLS certificates as an example, but that's the only infrastructure thing I think we mentioned today, unless maybe there was something else that I don't recall.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Jeff, for highlighting that. So I think another one is, with their capacity building, how are these tools adapted for different regions or levels of technical capacity?
Yes, that's a good question. Let me just quickly share my screen and show you what the toolkit looks like. Okay, as mentioned, we did develop toolkits that are designed to assist those who want to do grassroots trainings on online trust and safety. And the toolkit is in 2 parts. The first part is to assist the trainer in structuring the training so that you can focus on key deliverables that you can have in the training, and also the topics you'd like to cover. Because as we've said, online trust and safety is broad, but how can you maybe prioritize the topics and then structure the training towards covering those topics that you've identified. So we have this simple questionnaire that will help you as a trainer just identify how to structure the training. So it asks you, for example, what's the audience you're going to be covering? What's their literacy? Are they very new users? Are they familiar with smartphones? Or do they have, what type of devices do they have? And how do you want to structure the training? Will the attendees come with devices, or do you want it just to be like a discussion? Okay. So I'll show you, this is the first toolkit, which is designed or aimed at the trainer to help you scope and structure your training. Then I'll show you a second toolkit, which now is the toolkit you will use to deliver the training. So this now uses, once you've identified the topics, the structure you're going to have in the training, this now helps you run the training workshop itself. I'll give you, it covers how you prepare, how do you identify participants, and it also even includes content you can have in the training. And you can couple this with the short videos I mentioned. So for each of the 9 topics I mentioned, the 9 priority topics, so let's say you choose one topic to be avoiding online scams, there is a short video about 3 to 5 minutes that you can play at the training or share on a WhatsApp group for people to watch. And then this narrative gives you like a scenario-based explanation of how one user identified the scam and how they can learn from that experience so that they're not victimized, they don't become victims of that scam. So this toolkit is going to be made freely available on our website very soon. But if you want, a number of our chapters already have this, and we can share it to you Godsway, and you can distribute it. But I think it'll be on the website really soon. But this helps you, the toolkit helps you design the training, scope it in terms of identify the audience, how long you want the training to be, how you want to structure the training itself. And then now for the topics you select and the structure that you choose to run the training, it now gives you scenario-based explanations on specific topics that can be coupled with our short video explanation. And as I mentioned, the short videos are in English, French, and in Spanish. So this is the toolkit we have for online trust and safety. It focuses on the 9 topics. There'll be something very similar to this towards the end of the year for focusing primarily on scams, but this is available right now. So if you're on the call and you want to structure training and you're wondering, how do you set the topics? What content could you have? We have this available, and we do have short videos available that we can share. They're also available on the learning management system that I mentioned, and you can also download them. So these materials, I think, Godsway, we can see how to package them for the audience here to access.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing that. And thank you all participants for your active contributions so far. I think we've made a great progress and clarifications are being made. So let's now hear from our facilitators, their final remarks to us on how to get involved quickly. And also, so someone is asking the toolkit. So the toolkit will be made available to the online safety community. So please don't worry. Just feel free to stay tuned and also watch out for the online safety community. There is more coming up for you. Especially, we have a lot of links to share. I noticed there are a lot of resources I have to share. So please watch out. I'll compile all those and make it available for all of us. So let's do a quick one. So maybe Kevin, since you're already on, would like to take your final words before we wrap it up today.
Right. First, thank you very much, Godsway, and the rest of the organizers for this call. Very helpful, very engaging session. The questions were very relevant. I'm happy to have met a few people. If you have any questions, let's continue talking. I think we're all here because we have a passion for online trust and safety. As I saw, this is not something we can do alone. We really want to partner with our community out there. So let's keep talking. Thank you, Godsway, again for organizing this. Looking forward to new sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin, as well, for making up time for us. Jeff, please, what the final words?
Sure. Also, thank you, Godsway, for organizing this and for all of you who attended. Really great questions, and we have a little follow-up to do with some of them. I would just encourage you from the kind of grant giving side, if they apply to you, Global Encryption Day events, that opens up in a month, 6 weeks. Common Good Cyber Fund, take a look at that. Beyond the Net grants, it's all of that is available. There is a lot going on, and I hesitate a little bit to propose this in front of the whole group, but I think we should reconvene maybe in September when there'll be a lot more to talk about, because a lot of this is future, right? A lot of what Kevin talked about with anti-scam and some of the toolkits, and what I talked about with some of the funding opportunities. But that would be a good time to do an update. And there's just a lot going on. It's hard to keep track of, even if you work here at the Internet Society. So thank you all for your attention. Really appreciate it.
Yes, indeed, there's a lot going on, and it's difficult to keep track of all of them. And Dan, please, would like to hear from you as well.
I have just really enjoyed the conversation and listening to the pieces that have gone here and what's going on. And I would encourage people to, as Kevin and Jeff both said, to stay connected on that. We'll have more to talk about too. Coming up in June and July, I'll give you a little preview for the folks who are here. The work Kevin referenced over the past year of spending a lot of time talking to some of you around what would help the community has resulted in us developing what we're calling this Online Trust and Safety Hub. And that we'll be able to come back and talk to you about in probably July. We'll be able to come and be able to talk to you and show you some of what we've done based on the feedback that you gave last year. So in that time frame, we want your feedback in helping us understand. We heard you last year. We've done this based on that information. Are we going in the right place? Will this be useful for you? How can it work? What can we do better? Our plan then is to make that publicly available, finally available at the end of September. So we've got a time frame for doing that kind of work. As Jeff said, when we come back later this year, we'll have a whole lot to talk about. But in the meantime, there's an opportunity for this community in particular to be involved in the review of what we've done so far and help guide our continued evolution of that. So we'll be back. I'm sure, Godsway, we can figure out a time in late June, early July, somewhere in there where we'll be able to do something.
Sure. We'll be back again. Yes, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much, Dan, also for making up time to be here. John, please, if you can hear me, I'd like to give you the floor to say a few words.
Thanks, Godsway. And thanks everyone for joining today. I'll just say very briefly, we really appreciate your questions, right? Because we want community involvement in these programs, and we want to make sure that you're heard and your feedback is taken into account. So really appreciative of the great questions and for so much engagement and to see so much excitement from our community on trust and safety. And I know all of us on the call from staff look forward to working with you, and we hope to see you get involved as much as possible because we always put our community first. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, John, for also being here with us, and we appreciate you. Please, is there any other stuff on the call which I might miss? I think I saw Eunice, an instructor of the e-learning platform. Eunice, would like to say hi before we wrap up. Maybe if you could say hi.
Hi everyone. I'm sorry, I can open my camera.
Sure, that's fine.
I'm an instructor in the platform of Internet Society, specifically in the course of NetApps 1, introduction of the network operation 1. And there we work at defining with machine virtual to configuration to reverse DNS. And it's very important to these programs to involve the students. And how I was wondering how to get to the students who are more experienced can involve in these programs, and how to, in this platform, in the course or trainings where we are instructors, have a space to give the opportunity to manage these programs, to talk about this.
Thank you so much, Eunice, for highlighting on that again. So I think we would like to just wrap it up here with some few key takeaways of today. We've had a great session today, and so as we wrap up, some 3 key takeaways that we have to know is the Safer Internet Initiative is a global effort with local impact potentially, like we mentioned earlier. Community involvement is what matters most, and one aspect of that confidence raised a question, and this was very critical. Sometimes the smaller NGOs have the capacity, have the capability, the expertise, but unable to get funding because they are small. I don't know how that works out, but I think from today's session, we've had a lot of insight, and where the smaller NGOs should know how to also position themselves best. I think everyone matters, and the community is also ready to support you, and ISOC is already also supports everyone. So another point is, it's a community-driven initiative. Your participation always matters, so let's all get involved, regardless of the initiative you have. Now we have a lot of insights into it. You can get onto the website and plan accordingly to fit into any of the thematic areas or pillars being stated earlier. And I think you have a pathway there. And also we have a clear pathway now for engagement starting today. So the community will be expecting more from you. Like John mentioned, and Dan also mentioned, we appreciate all your comments so far. And all your comments are being taken into consideration. And we'll get back to you in June again for another exciting engagement on what has been done so far. So I will share all the follow-up resources, including the links and programs and communities, opportunities discussed today. And I would like to basically thank our speakers. I would like to thank you all for your time, and please thank you once again so much for making up time to be here with us and also to guide us on how to best benefit from this initiative. And also to our participants, we thank you for active participation today, where all your questions were also relevant and engagements were all relevant. So I think we look forward to seeing you all to contribute to a safer internet, and we hope to see more initiatives coming up from each one of us. And please, let's liaise more with our chapters. I think that is also a good point to work out with, regardless of the country you are in. Try to liaise with your chapter, and I think you should get the funding through and an opportunity through to be able to run initiatives. I believe that's best work. That is what Kevin raised earlier as well. And we appreciate everyone. Thank you all, and we'll continue to engage. And please keep close to the ISOC community portals and handles, and watch out for the May open session again. If you need more clarity or your organization needs to wrap it up itself and join again to gain more clarification, watch out 20th May, and hope to see you all once again. Thank you so much.